War was declared, but it wasn't the People's War, an anti-fascist war. It was an imperialist war. Estranged from the offensive war effort, the Daily Worker defensively campaigned instead for the protection of the people. Phil Piratin, captain of the Battle of Cable Street, organised to make Home Secretary Herbert Morrison provide deep shelters from the Blitz to come.
We began a campaign, among other things, for deep bomb-proof shelters. We understood from many of the building workers working in Whitehall and in the area of Buckingham Palace that deep bomb-proof shelters were being provided for the elite, and we felt that these people of Stepney were as good as the elite. And so one Saturday evening, I, with 4 others, led 78 people, 2 babies and 3 dogs into the shelter of the Savoy Hotel. Outside there were 2 chaps standing. But if you ever saw Tabby Rosen, who had arms like 2 barrels, and Chirps, who was the best boxer in London, and Squeaker, who was the best wrestler in London, if you ever saw them, these 2 people just melted away.
The invasion of the Savoy was reported by ace war correspondent Frank Pitcairn, who was now writing from the home front.
In addition to this action, our small committee had planned that on Tuesday, our leading member of the Communist Party in St. Pancras should break open the gates at Gooch Street Station. That evening, as dusk fell, by chance, there happened to be 2 crowbars in the vicinity, and he and some of his friends broke open the gates and then made an announcement with a loudhailer for people to go into the shelter, despite the rules laid down by the abysmal government. Following that, on Thursday, Mr. Morrison announced that the Cabinet had given the matter deep consideration, and now the shelters would be made open, and that part of our campaign turned to be successful.
It was only a matter of time before Herbert Morrison banned the Daily Worker. Special branch officers were posted outside the premises. Meanwhile, Douglas Hyde was on his way to work.
Someone was waiting for me who said, Bill Rust says you should not go in. The paper's been raided, the machines have been sealed. Herbert Morrison, Home Secretary, has said that if we start the Daily Worker again, we should go to jail. And Bill has something in mind for you. So we got out a small cycle-style paper that night to sell on the streets of London. It was a very unambitious thing, but it was good for the morale of the troops. Also, it cocked a snook at Herbert Morrison, which was worth doing in itself. After a few days, that petered out. But in the meantime, I had been told that I was being made responsible to bring into existence a national underground press.
While it installed secret presses, the party campaigned to lift the ban. It attracted powerful supporters like H.G. Wells, J.B. Priestley, George Bernard Shaw and Beatrix Lehman. Banned and then bombed, the Daily Worker's Caton Street offices were destroyed. Hitler attacked the USSR. The party press moved out of the margin and back into the mainstream. Finally, the paper was unbanned. The Daily Worker triumphed. It was welcomed back into Fleet Street's fold.
There was a big demand waiting for us because of the Raise the Ban campaign and all the publicity we'd had. Also, of course, because by this time we were going with the stream. By this time, the factories were having tanks go out, saying thanks for Joe, and there was a great feeling for the Soviet Union.
Douglas Hyde was now the news editor, working with William Rust, the editor, and Alan Hutt, the typographer and designer. They were set up in cramped new offices in Swinton Street and putting out 3 editions daily, for the first time competing directly with the rest of the press. Circulation hit 100,000 by 1944. The paper was now working for the war effort, with its own strategy for how to win. The Allies' triumph with the help of the Red Army. The map of Europe was again redrawn. "1945 and its peace. Actually, the daily worker ended up having a good war, and now it's basking in the glory of the Red Army. Communist Party membership trebles. There's cachet in being a communist in the 1940s. The daily worker circulation hits 250,000, its highest ever. It's ambitious, it's confident, it's the people's times. It all looks like the beginning of the new order. The Conservatives were banking on the Churchill effect to win the peace, but the winds of change were blowing across Britain, and Labour won with a landslide. 2 communists were elected to Parliament, Phil Peratin and Willie Gallagher. The Daily Worker embraced the new era with a new project, the creation of the People's Press Printing Society, which would symbolically separate the paper from the party. 10,000 people took out shares, many of them non-party members like George Bernard Shaw, Sean O'Casey and the Dean of Canterbury.
But now farewell, the spirit is driven, the concrete's in a flight again. And comrades come back, and the last night comes away. The years are now, you'll know, and comrades come back.
Jim Elliot was night manager from 1952, when his son David was 10, until 1987. Tell us about how you experienced as a child this communist life, or rather this Stalinist life.
Well, the main point was the fact that because he worked at a special rate, I mean, he worked at what's known as the party rate, we had very little money, so that was the first factor. And it was instilled in us that this was because it was the cause. So we were really quite proud that we were poor. Stalin's picture was in the kitchen, well, where we ate, because we had. And then there would be the events. There would be the Daily Worker Bazaar in Leighton. Then there would be the Christmas party. There would be the Daily Worker rally, the birthday rally in March. And of course they went on holidays. This is my father on the President of East Germany's yacht in Rostock. This is my mother.
Oh yeah?
This is, they got so drunk on this that it crashed into the harbour as it came back. But the major activity was the rally. That was my major contribution. I mean, I did the odd thing. I mean, they used to dress me up on marches. I had a kind of paper mache. There was one march. I had a paper mache thing on my head, which is about twice as big as me. And I think I was an American capitalist. I had a cigar and the paper mache hat, and I could just see. And I walked in front with. There was Uncle Sam, and there was 3 people, I can't remember who the 3rd person was. And there was a banner saying, the Daily Worker sweeps out, and my mother came behind me with a broom, and my father had the banner, and we led the march off, which was quite fun until the rain built up in the top, and I couldn't walk straight. And I mean, at one point, the whole march nearly veered off in the wrong because I kind of went off in the rain and kind of had to be kind of pulled back. And that was great fun. I mean, that really was fun.